We were far more socially out there active, and we didn't wait for green lights or somebody to do it for us, you know. Here today, I don't know, the children, the teenagers, their minds have been hijacked, their mental system, education, their very nervous system stolen from them. There's nothing like that going on.
Chief, I wanted to ask you something rather personal. What was your beginnings into the knowledge? Like, how did you come to the knowledge? Because you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, you said 40 years ago. And I remember I asked Jim the same question. Like, did you stumble upon it? Was it passed down to you? How was your beginning in this journey?
My beginning to come to terms with the world not being what we're told came at a rather young age, because I was probably 16, and you know, 16-year-old boys, pretty horny, and I was probably looking for something in a bathing suit to look at in one of my mother's magazines called Cosmopolitan. And in that magazine, I found one article, and it was called "The Mind Manipulators."
Whoa, holy shit.
It was a big, rude awakening, because it was a synopsis of a book that had just been written of the same title. And it was regarding two particular, that I remember, of three different leading scientists of the day. One of them was B.F. Skinner and Jose Delgado. Delgado, the first one to implant a device into the brain of a bull and put them in front of a matador and control them with a remote control device and bring the bull to his knees, you see? So Delgado, Skinner, and co. were in the process of presenting in this book that in the future, the education system of America and the world will have the introduction of drugs to control the population was the main overarching discussion of the book. And the real way for me was how they planned to implement it. And
what year was that? What before we get into that, what year was that, Chief? Like, Jim, did you hear this? Chief just said he stumbled into the knowledge through like a Centerfold magazine. Imagine someone's mind back then that they put an article into such a magazine, man. Like,
but
this is
their
crazy.
way. This is their way of saying it's your fault for not knowing. We told you so.
Yo, this is divine intervention, though. Imagine Chief is, you know, being a 16-year-old hornball, just like all of us were at 16. He stumbles into this article. So what year was that, man?
1972. 1972.
Damn.
So, yeah, this magazine, Cosmopolitan, it's not like a regular Playboy, Penthouse, and all of the. They didn't exist in Ireland. My father was a customs officer. Those were not allowed in. They weren't seen on the shelves of any shop, you know. So the nearest thing you could get to a pornography magazine, if you consider Playboy and Penthouse now to be pornography, they were certainly then. But the nearest thing to a lady in a naked lady was in a bathing suit. Yeah. And the Cosmopolitan magazine I referred to was a regular women's magazine, as we have on the shelves of the newsagents.
So what did you do? So what did you do? You read the article and you found the book? Is that how it happened?
I went to the library and I took out the book, and it shocked me. I ordered the book And when I read it, it shocked me because they were talking about the introduction of Ritalin into children in national fundamental principles, and how they were planning this for 10 and 20 years ahead. That the attention deficit disorder, and through colorants in the food and stimulants and all of this, and then they would establish school doctors, and the teachers were going to bring the student that's a little disruptive or can't concentrate to the school doctor. The school doctor diagnoses ADHD, and now they have the power to write a prescription, and the parents have to fulfill this, and the child is forcibly put on Ritalin at the age of 5 or 6. And if the parents don't go along, they get brought up to court and charged with child abuse and all of this by the medical establishment. I'm seeing this way ahead, and the demonic idea of it, putting these children, innocent kids, on this stuff. Because years later, I was living in London, and I had a friend that was an ex-user, and I got to meet lots of his people like that, and they're users not just of heroin but of speed, and it turns out to be Ritalin. Is what most
Ritalin, Ritalin again. Like, sorry for interrupting you, but Ritalin is synthetic cocaine. Just for people to understand, and imagine because it's so big in America. Imagine they see a very normal child. They say he's hyper, even though, what do you want the kid to be, doped out, falling asleep? No, children are hyper. This is normal stuff. And in America, it's a plague. I don't know the percentage, but the percentage is huge on Ritalin. I didn't know what the same thing was going on in Ireland. But Chief, so you find this book. So you read the article, so you're convinced, your mind is blown. You find the book. And what were your following steps like?
I wrote an article for my school magazine. The school I went to was an American college, the first and only of its kind. And I do believe, probably in hindsight, had a CIA aspect to it. And it was called St. Lawrence's College. And our school magazine was called Larry. And a good close friend of mine, one of my best friends, was the editor of the magazine. And the magazine was about more lighthearted stuff, poetry and the teenage stuff and the school stuff like that. My article was coming in at 10 pages or something like that, which I tried to refine down to 6. And still, it got blocked by him and 3 or 4 other people on the panel that thought this is just not suitable material for the school magazine. So that was the first blowback I ever got, that people aren't ready and not going to accept the truth, no matter how fucking alarming it is, or how important it is, So that was my first disappointment, and actually ended up having a great distance between myself and my friend over that from then on. We had set up a youth club, in our locality, and a football team, soccer team in our locality, things like that. We were quite activist because we were in a new urbanized area, and the parents weren't providing these for us. So we thought, well, let's just set up our own youth club and our own football team, like that. So at that time, we were far, when I consider the kids of today are going around on these zombie machines, we were far more socially out there, active, and we didn't wait for green lights or somebody to do it for us, Here today, I don't know, the children, the teenagers, their minds have been hijacked, their mental system, educational, their very nervous system, stolen from them. There's nothing like that going on. So my next encounter with truth was actually on a similar vein. In a bookshop in my hometown near the library, I found another book and it was called the Kama Sutra. And the Kama Sutra introduced me when I realized, you know, I was still a horny.
There's nothing wrong with Kama Sutra. It's like the West kind of, you know, made it like
I had a motivation. As I said, as a horny teenager, I had a motivation in digging it out. But when I realized that there's a culture here and a history that actually accommodates and is that this Kama Sutra is a part of, you know, and that is the Vedic culture. It was the first time I read the Vedas. And a short time later, then in London, I came across more Vedic knowledge from Hare Krishnas, of all people on the streets, the ancient book from India, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And that set me down.
Mahabharata. Jim, so Jim came into knowledge 40 years ago also. So were you guys communicating back then?
No, we met in the early 90s.
Oh, you met in the 90s.
We met in the early 90s, me and him, yeah. I was just going to add earlier on, right, that the school I went to, and the chief as well, were all Jesuit-run schools. But we weren't the Jesuits that they were training to become prime ministers and we were the Jesuits that they were training to become fucking slaves.
Right.
We were given such a rotten education, and these Christian brothers kicked the shit out of us every day. And then after I left school, corporal punishment in school was banned. So
how did you guys meet, man? Like, that's so interesting. Do you remember how you guys met?
Yeah. We're from towns only 15 miles apart, but we didn't meet until
wait. We are both, my grandparents and him, we're both from the same town along the border.
So wait, you're part of the same clan?
No, not really. No, but listen, the name of the town is spelled Clones, Clones.
Okay.
We pronounce it.
We pronounce it Clones, but the town is called Clones. I come from it, and he comes from.
Yeah, it comes from the old Irish word Cluan Oish is the original Irish name, but the English Land Commission in 1847 came in here, took all of the Irish place names that had meaning, and you know everybody understood the meaning, and they just anglicized them. So where they say a town would be Ballymore, they would just call it Ballymore, you know. And you know, this Ballyferreter, Bally James Duff, Bally, all these, it's just, they anglicized our names. They did it with our Irish surnames as well. So the O'Fuelon just became Whelan, you see? And that way they anglicize your name and they give you the English terminology, and they put your birth certificate in your English name, and from then on the legal system establishes you as theirs through your name. Whereas if everybody today in Ireland was to recognize themselves through their Irish name and only speak Irish, we could immediately cast off this English British accredited registry enslavement legalese law system. So important language in our culture again.
We're gonna get into all of this because, like, I'm not like, you know, because I really like to, you know, indulge in all of this and, like, you know, take it slow. Like, I love little, you know, details and everything. Jim, you were saying that your grandparents came from the town?
Yeah, my grandmother came from the town, and as I would have been visiting that town as a child, well, his dad was a customs officer in this town. The border with the north is a few hundred meters. But I mean, me and the customs and excise would never have been friends. We used this border to make money. I don't want to use the S word,
Right.
but that's basically what, when we were growing up and into our late teens and early 20s, we were racing cars and vans across the border full of biscuits and coffee and tea and fucking whiskey.
Things that were a little bit cheaper because of the taxation and duty in Britain compared to Ireland. But for the peasant people and the people struggling to make a living, to get butter or bacon and these things, at even a few pence on the pound cheaper, it was very important to go across the border once a month or once a week and stock up on these things.
So wait a second. You guys are speaking of this very lightly, but you have to remember that I'm in America, and you know, like, so was this the time during the conflict, during the war? Because you said borders.
Yeah.
So this was what, early 90s you're talking?